Dave Smith, and I'm the guy that was in Washington, D.C. in that corner office who got an opportunity here at the BRF to move home. And what was really appealing to me about the opportunity was I was making that long commute into Washington, D.C. every day, wasn't having any fun, but most importantly, I had 2 young daughters, and I would rather have them grow up in Shreveport, Bossier than in Washington, D.C. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. I've had a great time doing that. My co-host, Matt Snyder, he and I work together at EAP. We've done a lot of hard things, and the neat thing about Matt and I really is that we disagree on a lot of things, whether it's how we're going to do an event, how we're going to market something. But regardless of that, we always come back together and we have a quality agreement and event, and it works.
Yeah, I think that comes from the 2 different worlds we're coming from. Dave has so much experience, and I've learned so much from Dave. But my background is being on the streets, out talking to business owners in the community. I own PinPoint Local Marketing and PinPoint Events, and my day-to-day is going from meeting to meeting with small business owners and talking about their business. And so it's a great mix to hear Dave and what he's dealing with when he's talking to investors and leading people in industry and different, movers and shakers in the community. And I'm able to balance that against the guys that are on the street selling retail, selling in restaurants, building their jewelry store, whatever it might be. These are true people running a business in Shreveport. And a lot of times what we've learned, I think we'd both say, is the 2 worlds are not saying the same thing.
Sometimes they're not.
They're
Absolutely.
not, but a lot of times you can take what one side is saying and balance it to help the other side. I think that's what Shreveport is missing at times.
Well, that's what really led us to this podcast.
That's right.
Right? Because regardless of where you sit in Shreveport, what you and I feel is we're right on the cusp of something great.
That's right.
It's going to happen, okay? And the more we pull together, the sooner it's going to happen. That's why we picked the name On the Cusp.
You know who I always feel like come out of conversations going, man, we are way more on the cusp than we think we are, is people that are not from here that move here because usually the ones I'm talking to move here because they married some girl or they married some guy that is attached to the area. And they never, to me, sound as down and as hopeless as a lot of the people that have been in this fight for a long time. And
I would say, yeah, I get that feeling sometimes. Sometimes the guys and gals that have been here a long time, they'll focus on the negative.
Right.
They'll go straight to the negative. And I could do that. Like I told you the story. I can remember driving to Shreveport in the Red River District and staying down there, okay, and then leaving. And that was key, man. That was a culture, right?
Right.
That was big. And the shortfall of that was our designated driver always didn't stay the designated driver, and we ended up staying in Shreveport.
A lot of people, this will probably make a lot of people not like me, but I say this often, and if you know anything about me, I'll say what I think. When I was in high school and growing up, you heard commonly Shreveport is 5 to 7 years behind Dallas. As a kid, you'd hear that in clothes. Oh man, Tommy Hilfiger made it to Shreveport. It was hot in Dallas 5 years ago. My concern is 20 years later, we're not 5 to 7 years behind Dallas. We're probably 10 to 15 years behind Dallas. And now we're starting to fall 5 to 7 years behind Tyler, Texas, and Lafayette, Louisiana, and cities that historically we've been way ahead of. And that's where I get concerned of how we keep up.
That's an interesting point, because if you look at Shreveport in the 50s and how many major corporate headquarters were right here in downtown. Right. And we're going to talk a lot about downtown, okay? They were right down over there.
That's right.
Okay? And they left, all right? And now we're in the situation to where we're constantly talking to companies to get them to move back to Shreveport and do that.
In those times, too, you hear when you talk about the 50s and 60s in Shreveport, I think it's assumed by people that know that business was booming. But what you hear people talking about those times more often is the culture of Shreveport in those times.
Yep.
The Louisiana hayride, the people coming into Shreveport to spend nights out eating and drinking and going out
That's
and
right.
having dinner.
It was there.
The difference now that I believe is when you're in talks with people that can make things happen and you're talking about economic development, they always want to talk about how we're going to get this big company to bring a bunch of jobs to Shreveport.
Yep.
But what they don't talk about anymore is how we're going to catch our culture up
That's
to
a
the
tough,
rest of the country.
That's a tough situation, and we face it every day, okay? Because we do need that big company with 1,000
do.
jobs, okay? And we want the company with those high-paying technology jobs, because when they come in, what happens? They create 5 other jobs associated with that one high-paying job. That's your culture. That's your
right.
restaurant owner. That's your entertainment guy.
My
So
first
who
big
comes
event.
first, Matt? Here's the problem, and we keep having this
That's right.
reoccurring discussion of who comes first.
Let me give you an example of my real life. My first large event was Shreveport Derby Day at Norton Art Gallery. And the coolest thing at that time was really special. That was about 8 years ago, I guess now. And at that time, you had a lot of brands popping up, a lot of cultural brands popping up in Shreveport. You had Rhino Coffee, Great Raft Beer, Key Mexico was starting to show up. There were a few years, but those kind of brands, Wine Country at the time in
Yeah.
Piermont Mall, there were some cultural things happening. And at the time, Moonbot was down here
Right.
and had a
Right
lot
across the hallway.
That's right, and had a lot of out-of-town cultural cool people looking for things to do. And when we were building Derby Day, I said, we have to find a way to take this energy and these new Shreveporters, and we have to integrate them with old money Shreveport. And my partners at the time of Derby Day, afterwards, we were talking about it, and we were talking about the things that were successful and the stories and the funny things that happened and all that. And I said, I'll tell y'all when I knew we had done it. And I looked across Derby Day, and there's all these people, and they're all dressed up, and I see this 20-something-year-old girl with a sleeve tattoo, and she's dancing with like a 65-year-old Shreveport guy, and they're just having a ball, and they're just happy to be
That's a pretty good
outside, and it's
indicator.
awesome. And you say that is what could, in my opinion, that's what could change
Yeah.
our community.
Well, I would tell you, when we're recruiting these startups, and that's what we focus on, is when we're trying to get these startups to actually launch here in Shreveport, okay, culture is a key component, okay, of that. They got to feel it's here, okay, and we're constantly struggling with that.
Because when we're talking about that, when I'm talking about that, and I say to a group of guys, businessmen, we're trying to get this company here, they start telling me about the needs of the executives. The executive's looking for space, the executive's looking for a nice home, the executive wants his kids to go to school. What I don't hear them talking about is the lifestyle of the wives they're bringing
Yeah.
or the husbands.
We talked
their
about that before.
children.
That's right.
And so those are the things I think if you bring your spouse into a city and say, we're thinking about moving our life here, they're not going to be concerned what your office looks like or how many,
Right.
whatever, how close you are to
Well,
the
I'm on the
interstate.
hook right now. I probably got 4 or 5, okay, that are going to either leave the East Coast or West Coast, and they're going to relocate here, okay?
That's awesome.
And we're excited about that. But they're coming from locations where there's always something to do, and that is key. I think they will drive a lot of that, all right? They will be part of the solution to make that happen.
You have to keep getting them here is one step. But if you look at a lot of the Moonbot crew, let's use Moonbot
Yeah.
as an example. Moonbot is owned by Bill Joyce, who's a Shreveporter, who loves
Yeah.
Shreveport like we love Shreveport probably.
Yep.
But the people that he was bringing in to work with him, they had a pull to get out of Shreveport and to get back to some culture.
It happens
that's what they did.
every day.
So
it happens. We've
if
had
you
very
do your
successful
job,
portfolio companies.
You
okay?
get them here. You get all those
you
East
get 'em
Coast
here?
companies here. If I'm not doing my job of making our culture catch up
Yes.
to what they expect, you can get them here all you want, Dave,
But they're not going to stay.
but they're gone.
Yeah, it's a never-ending process that you got to work with. You got to work it every side. And there are a lot of people working that piece. I'm not that guy, okay?
We have those things though, but a lot of time because we're so focused on the business side of getting this company, we forget to show them the real estate, the communities out at Providence or Southern Trade.
But see, that's what we want to do with this podcast, right? And On the Cusp. We want to be able to communicate to people here in Shreveport, Bossier, that there's a lot going on. It's very positive, okay? Because we're not going to come on here and we're not going to bash anybody.
That's right.
Okay, that was one of the rules. When we said we were going to do this, we said, okay, we're not here to bash anyone.
We're not going to bash anyone, but we are going to talk about the issues that we see that are causing us to struggle to hit that next step.
That's right. We will. And we'll try to stay away from the politics the best we can.
Right.
And we won't cuss, because a lot of times you and I'll get excited and we'll start cussing, okay, and at each other and everything.
But I don't know which of those rules is going to be the hardest.
I don't know. You're right. That's 3 rules that are going to be hard to keep out of this. But,
man, we need one of those money jars. Yeah. Like where we're just $5 whoever breaks a rule.
Maybe we should get a money jar. I think that wouldn't be a bad idea to do that. But I think this room, when we were getting ready and we were watching Clint and the guys, everybody set this up for us, okay? We're talking about this room. Brady Blade and LED and the BRF got this set up. There have been multiple times that clients have come into the BRF and said, we'll rent that space, but you got to tear all that out.
Yep.
And we have to sit back and we have to go, is that really what we want to do? Is there value in having this? And I hope that we made the right decision every time by not doing that, by not tearing it out.
That was such a special time in Shreveport. We were talking about Moonbot. I also remember when bands were coming in to record here and they were selling tickets where you could stand outside these windows and watch them recording. What a special, exciting thing to be happening in Shreveport, Louisiana. And you know what? We have to be working to get that back at all times.
Absolutely. And that's why you said something about, we were always behind Dallas. We were behind these deals, okay? We have to be on the forefront of multiple technology areas, right? We have to be out there looking at technology and changes and be ahead of those. If we wait until one's already done, and that's what happened to this studio, that technology changed.
Right.
Okay. No longer did you have to have this incredible facility to do a recording. Heck, there are people doing it in their garages.
We have to champion our strengths, though. Shreveport has a terrible. When I go out to East Ridge and I'm playing golf on the weekend and we're having lunch afterwards, those conversations aren't usually talking about all the strengths of Shreveport. They're usually talking about all the bad things of Shreveport, all the reasons why, man, I'll tell you if it doesn't change, I'm moving. There are a lot of great things about Shreveport.
There sure are.
And we as Shreveporters don't talk about them and don't share them nearly as much as we should.
You know what? I was sitting in a meeting yesterday with someone that had just moved to Shreveport, and we have on our backdrop the silhouette of Shreveport, and they had never seen that before, okay? And that's the silhouette we picked for On the Cusp, okay? Never seen that silhouette before, and they said, what is that? I said, that's downtown Shreveport. And we showed them the picture that we used to do that, and they went, that is so cool. Why don't more people use that? Because it is an awesome picture. Okay?
Well, you go to so many cities, and like bigger cities, more successful probably cities in the last 20, 30 years, and they don't have a downtown like Shreveport.
No, they do not.
You don't. But do you hear people say, hey man, when you pull into Shreveport and you see downtown, that's awesome. You don't hear them say that. What they say is when you pull into Shreveport and you pass Monkhouse Drive and it looks like a crime scene.
I know exactly the
that's
quote.
What they say.
I know, absolutely. I know what the quote you're talking about.
If they don't like how it looks coming that way, why don't we start bringing people in a different route?
Mm-hmm. Well, we are a multimodal city. You can bring them in multiple routes. Okay? Very easy to do.
Let's change the route.
But I like coming in that route. really and truly, when I bring people in, I like to come that route and say, there's the Independence Bowl. You know, we're the longest continuously serving bowl right there. And you're going to, in one of our podcasts, we're going to bring in Radiance Technology, the sponsor of the Independence Bowl.
The Independence Bowl is a great example of Shreveporters, certain troopers doing the right thing and fighting when it's not easy to keep something that is special.
Absolutely. There are a lot of people in this community that do a lot to keep that going. And
That's
I
right.
think that is exceptional. Those are the people we want to highlight. Those are the ones we want to lift up and say, look, they're doing something about it. And I want to be one of those people. I don't want to be the guy sitting back always complaining and going negative.
The doers are not getting attention right now. The true doers, the guy that's grinding, that's building his business in Shreveport, that's saving the Independence Bowl, that's building helicopters, that's whatever, all these things, they're not getting championed right now. The same people are getting championed over and over.
Maybe so. Maybe some of them are
You
more
think
out
that
there.
The average citizen in Shreveport, if you were walking down the street, could tell you about Metro Aviation?
No, they would not. They probably don't even know where Metro Aviation is and what they're doing, not to just change. And this is great for them. Most people don't realize that downtown
that's an
Shreveport,
amazingly successful,
changing
really
aviation,
cool business.
Changing Air Force technology today. Okay, most people don't know that. A lot of people don't know right here at Intertech One. Okay, that there's a biotech company, okay, that licensed a local university technology, okay, that they're fixing to commercialize and go big on, and they're hiring, it's 4 or 5 PhDs right now, but gosh, man, their opportunity is incredible, and it's happening right here in Shreveport, and they just did it. Wasn't easy. If it was easy, anybody would do it, okay, and I got to tell you, I think one of our biggest challenges at EAP to date has been we've seen a lot of great ideas, but we don't have the talent. And you need to prove me wrong. We don't have the talent to go, that's a great idea. We're going to put this individual in this organization to help them launch and keep them in Shreveport.
I think some of Shreveport's problem, and this is skirting on the rules, but some of Shreveport's problem is the talent that's out there. If it doesn't come from our circle, it doesn't get lifted up. And there's a lot of talented people in Shreveport that I know that are refusing, and I can be guilty of this too at times, to work together because of past issues, because Shreveport is just small enough that everybody kind of knows everybody and everybody.
I'm gonna disagree with you.
Okay, good.
Okay, because within our portfolio, there are technologies that exist that Louisiana investors have taken the risk with them. Okay, and I think very soon you're going to see a perfect case of where that is. I wish I could talk about it and use
You
their
are
name.
a good example of that, because when you think of the companies you have in your portfolio and then the investor base and the group that supports them, that is a great example of two different worlds working together.
Absolutely.
I don't
and
think
the
that
BRF
happens a
had
lot
to be
outside of this building.
I don't think it
but
happens
I think
a lot
it is
there.
a great
But we
example.
actually brought all that together. We brought the accredited investors together. The best technology deals are put in front of them, okay? And overwhelming, they have come in and done it, okay, and made them successful. And I think we're going to see a lot of results from some of those real soon.
Success, even from your competitors in Shreveport, should be celebrated instead of fought.
Absolutely.
Right
we have
now,
to celebrate
if
more
somebody
success.
is successful in a new venture and it might threaten you in any way, Shreveport has a tendency to fight negatively against that, and I think that's what we have to fix.
Competition.
And I'll call myself out on that. I need to get better at that.
Wait a minute. We all love college sports. Competition is what makes you good.
That's right.
Okay? And if you're sitting there in a business and I'm going to tell you, when somebody walks into me and the EAP team and they say, I got no competition in this space. Really? What makes you think that? I don't buy it.
The competitors will think they have.
Yeah. I think competition makes you better. Pretty much across the board, you pick it, whether it's sports or business. It'll make you rise up and improve your game. So I don't necessarily subscribe.
The best thing that I'll say too before, Shreveport has great people, a lot of great people, and a lot of people that are dedicated to the cause. Because of Shreveport, I don't know that in Dallas you're gonna find the passion to fight from a core group of people that really are fighting to change Dallas every day. They don't need to. It's too big.
It's pretty spread out.
It is what it is.
They got their own little pockets
Shreveport
around
has a lot of people that are very passionate in their own minds of how and why and wanting to make Shreveport better. I think where we all get in our
let me tell you where we've
not working together.
Right. Now that's a key point. Let me tell you my observation, okay, on this is, and this goes from multiple economic development deals. Either my community gets it or I'm not playing. That kills
That's right.
us. Absolutely.
That hurts. And that is in economic development. That's in events. That's in local business.
It's either me.
That's in nonprofit world.
Me.
That's in all of it.
It's all me. Okay. Got to be in my backyard or I'm not in.
Right.
Now, I have seen the most encouraging collaboration in probably the last 2 years coming out of COVID, okay, in our region that I have seen in a very long time. I'm telling you, I feel it. I wish I could, describe it better to you, but there are things happening at the port that are crazy great, okay? There are things happening here at the BRF that we're collaborating with the port that are going to be major events.
And that's one of the things that we are hoping on this podcast to be able to do.
Absolutely.
We are going to break economic news on this podcast.
Right. And we're
going to share in-depth commentary on what these things actually mean to the community.
When you and the team brought this idea up about a podcast, I was skeptical. I said, okay, this podcasts are not easy. Okay. My thoughts were, I want existing businesses to come in and talk about what's great about Shreveport. I want startup businesses to come in and talk about what's great, why, and we're going to have a couple here today. And then the third one was, I want to challenge the new versus the old. And we're going to talk about some of those things, right?
That's going to be fun.
That's going to be an interesting one because we always disagree on those things, the business plan is the first one that always comes up, right? We're going to talk about that one. That's important. If we can get those things, those topics, and talk about those in a positive way in our region, okay, then this podcast is successful. I think what we want is for somebody to watch this podcast, have an idea, email us at info@eapla.com and say, hey, I listened to your podcast, but what about this? Have you thought about this? Give us something to drive.
I want you to say, Matt doesn't know anything about local business. Let me come tell y'all. I will welcome you
that
openly.
Would be good. That would be good.
Please come tell. I don't know. I wish I wasn't having to do this actually, but we want these topics brought up. We want to talk about the things nobody's talking about.
Within our 3 rules, okay? Within our 3 general rules.
If you can come in and not cuss, not talk politics, and not badmouth anybody, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Come on. What was it? info@eapla.com is where.
That's right.
Send it to us.
Or find us on Facebook.
That's right.
Text us, whatever you want.
You know what? If you think, hey, Matt and Dave are dumber than a box of rocks.
They've
never read those books on that table, okay? Okay. Well, I have, okay. And Emily, that was her idea. Okay, I'll give her that credit. Emily's behind all this. Way better, Emily, back there. Okay. Matt, this has been a lot of fun. Episode 1, we really got, talked about a lot of important things here. And we would both agree. There's a lot of great things going on in Shreveport.
We're on the cusp.
We're on the cusp of something really big. And if somebody out there has an idea or they want to give us some feedback on something we need to talk about, hey, email us at info@eapla.com. We're happy to respond to that. And you know what? We might even ask you to be on this podcast. How about that?
It's awesome.
All right. Thank you.